looking at us with a great big smile all the time, and we're looking at them with a great big smile, and oh gosh, it feels so great to have somebody welcome you like that. And then what happens is that we know that first stage is full of chemicals, that our brains actually change, and the part of the brain that changes is the part of the brain that changes with gambling and cocaine and chocolate. So there's a real addictive quality about it, and it lasts 3 years the first time, but it has diminishing returns. So it lasts less and less amount of time. The drugs, the chemistry. When we fall out of that first stage into the stage I call doubt and denial, we move into a power struggle. And then as we're in the power struggle, if you think about how you feel when you go to greet somebody who you know loves you unconditionally, and how wonderful that is. I think that's why we love our dogs and our cats, because they just greet us with, everything is forgiven. But our lover, after a period of time, doesn't. Sometimes he looks annoyed or looks stressed out, and it may have nothing to do with us. But there isn't that sense of unconditionality, and we don't have it for them either. What happens is we start to shut ourselves down. We get different chemicals. And the chemicals now, we're wired for connection, which is stage one. We're wired to fall in love. In fact, we call it falling. It doesn't even take it's not an act of consciousness. We fall into it. And we're also wired for protection, not just connection, but protection. And so I walk in to see, I've been with my husband for 30 years. We've been married for 25. And we still go through this when we go away. I have in my mind, when I go away and I go somewhere, and I think about him, I always think of the best. I never think of not just the worst, but I never think of the ordinary. It's the best. So I come home. I've been on some amazing trip somewhere, and he's been running our life. And he's sort of, he's working. He's taking care of our animals. He's taking care of sort of the day by day. And I come in, and I'm all expansive, expecting this person who is, in my mind, my ideal partner. And he's sort of grumpy. He's wearing an old shirt. And he says hi, but not particularly warm and loving. And I'm shocked. I'm thinking, I can't get the two together. So if I know that this is going to happen, and we do know it, and we talk about it now before we see each other, because we know that there's often a miss in how we greet each other. But if I don't know that, I walk in and I think something's wrong, and then I start to shut myself down. My vulnerability goes away. And instead of being vulnerable now, I am sort of defended. Who is he? And we move, when we're defended, we move into either fight, freeze, or flight. And so at that point, I may withdraw or criticize him in some way, like, I expected more of a welcome. Then he may withdraw or feel criticized, and then we start into a loop. Is this all making sense, how this happens? A power struggle.
Absolutely.
Or he'll say, I've got the kitchen clean for you. And I'll come home and I'll look around, I'll see 2 cups, and I'll think the kitchen's not clean. Because that's my struggle, is that I get very perfectionistic. Okay, so then we start into a power struggle. He'll see me looking at the cup, and he'll say, why would you notice the cup? I spent 2 hours cleaning it. And then we can go off into a loop. It's very different than stage 1, where everything was wonderful. So the power struggle, which I call doubt and denial, happens. And at that point, my body is now in a much more of a closed state. It's not open. It's closed. And his is more closed. And so then we're looking at each other through a different lens. He's no longer this perfect person that's going to make my life wonderful all the time. He's somebody who left the kitchen in a mess and thinks it's clean. So some other part of me then comes out, and he sees me as, rather than appreciative partner, someone who's always finding fault. And then we have another dance that we do. And and that's part of being human. So the second stage of doubt and denial, the power struggle, happens in our relationships, all of them. And if we can know that it's a part of being human and maintain our humor and our kindness so that we allow that to pass, and then we don't have to create damage in that stage. But not knowing or understanding that it's normal and there's nothing wrong with our relationship, we get reactive. And when people stay reactive for a long time, they can move into the third stage, which is disillusionment.
Okay,
so if stage
can I slow
one
you down
is
for a second?
Yeah.
Linda, because I actually have a question about the moving from the first stage to the second stage.
Go for it, yeah.
So you had mentioned that that addictive quality of the merge stage lasts about 3 years the first time. I just want to ask for some clarification. Do you mean that that's 3 years in the one relationship, or let's say I have another relationship, is it only going to last 2 years with that next partner?
Well, you can't like say, and we're all so different. My husband's from New Zealand, and we saw each other once a year for 5 years, so it lasted for 5 years. That's a great way to keep it to last, is to see each other once a year. But it has diminishing returns because it's a chemical, and every time we fall in love, it takes less and less time before we say, uh-oh. The first time, and that's why a lot of people get stuck in their high school or their college love, the person that they fall in love with first, because it never completes. It gets stuck in the middle, so that we always can look back at that and think, oh, that person was so perfect for me, because we're still in stage one with that person. And that's why so many people fall in love in their high school reunions when they're 80 years old. That's another talk. But
that's like people who use heroin, like chasing the dragon. That first
that's
high,
exactly what
they're
it
always
is.
trying to get that first high.
That's exactly it.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you want to feel that chemical high without having to do any work for it, because you can get the feelings back, but they don't come free. We don't fall into them. It's a skill set. But if you just want to feel madly in love, you just have to change partners faster and faster all the time. And then you get to feel it, but, then you're in a constant state of distress because you're losing it too.
Wow. All right. Thank you, Linda. So now the next one, we've gone from merge, which is that big butterfly, magical, he's the one for me.
That's right, just like that.
To
exactly
doubt and denial. Like. And then the third one is disillusionment.
Yeah, the disillusionment is, if the first one is enchantment, everything is perfect. Everything is evidence that this is what I've been waiting for all my life. The third one is disenchantment. The opposite. Everything remains evidence, but it's new evidence. It's evidence I shouldn't be with you. This isn't going to work. What was I thinking? We aren't alike at all. In fact, we're so different. I don't know what we ever had in common. And so that's the opposite. They're both trances. One is a halo trance, and the other is a shadow trance. And neither are true. You're not perfect for me. And you're probably not totally imperfect for me either if I chose you, And so what happens is I see there's a selection process that goes on where I can take certain information that I see and it fits into a system, and that I make that the truth. And we do that all the time. So in stage 3, everything goes into this system that says, uh-oh, wrong person, I better get out of here. And, sometimes it is the wrong person. But I think that the worst time to leave is when you're in stage 3, because you can't really see anything but what's wrong. But I'm getting ahead of myself. See, I get so excited about talking about this.
No, this is wonderful. I actually wanted to ask you, and I think this might be the stage that it's in, righteous indignation. I circled it and highlighted it. I mean, I've felt this before too. Can we talk a little bit about that? And I think women can be worse for this than men. Yeah,
I think that's interesting. I think you're right. Righteous indignation is so addictive, and some of us are more into it than others. But when we have our feelings hurt, if you think about conversations, just think about if you hear two people talking.